Otherwise, ready when you are.
All right, here we are. We are live on YouTube. Excellent. This is episode 22. Alan, I'll let you do a little bit of a here we are while I just post the link up on the Facebook page.
Indeed. Good morning to, good evening to all you out there on the stream. We are streaming from YouTube this morning, and Ian's just going to chuck up those links because I had a couple of people message me. Obviously keen to talk to our guest star of this week, second in our Road to Nationals interview series, which we're very excited. Me and Ian are obviously taking a little bit break from our usual format, so we can capture the history, I suppose, of these very first Road to Nationals events. So what we will do for today's podcast is we'll go through our little housekeeping. We don't have too much to talk about today. Already see we've got a couple of viewers jumping on, so we don't have too much. I do want to reminisce about my fantastic weekend in Dunedin at Road to Nationals at Dice Jar Games. And I suppose we've got a few things to quickly hype. And then we will go to the main event, which is Jacob Pearson. Funnily enough, Jacob is actually going to be in the studio with Ian over there. Because we didn't want to use the studio at the offices tonight. And apparently Jacob is not the owner of a flash laptop. He doesn't have a fantastic multimedia setup like the rest of us do. I don't know what he was doing during the lockdown, but clearly it wasn't watching Netflix while eating chocolate in bed, basically. So that's the cast for today. We have some questions. We have a couple of questions already lined up, and obviously me and Ian will rift away with some questions. But obviously I'm watching the comments. So guys, I see Mr. Spence is up on the watching on the stream there. If you want to drop your questions into in for Jacob, we'll get to that pretty soon. So back over to the Savage Land Studios.
You like that?
Yeah, it is. Today I am using, might notice my online name, Alan Blind Dead Hale, which is actually my fab name at the moment because I was mucking around in Gem and changed my name to Blind Dead Hale. But that's usually the whenever I'm anywhere on any kind of forum, as they used to call them in the old days. That's my username. It is. It isn't. It is. Yeah. But yeah, Blind Dead. It's actually from one of my most favorite horror series, the Blind Dead series of Italian zombie films, which was super cool. All right, we all posted then, Ian.
Yeah, all good to go. Right. So,
all right,
what have we got for good housekeeping?
Okay, so good housekeeping this week is, let's see. So, first thing is probably just to hype the upcoming Road to Nationals. Now, this weekend, we've just got the one Road to Nationals, which isn't in New Zealand. It's in Taiwan. 1st of August is Cat's Footprint. I believe I'll probably get as always, with my pronunciation of Taiwanese names. It's probably wrong, but we have Cat Footprints To Fen. Or Tofan. I think it's Tofan is coming up. So that'll be interesting to see what how Taiwanese metagame reacts, especially since in Dunedin, Warrior won. Matt Rogers took it down with Warrior, which we'll get to. But Dorinthia has been super popular in Taiwan since the inception of the game. So I'm wondering if we will see a lot of people jump back into Warrior for Tofan.
Well, yeah, definitely going to be interesting. This does throw up a few interesting curveballs on whether or not they're going to stick with their lists, or if they're going to use the meta that is happening here in New Zealand. But I find it interesting. I think obviously we have our friend who won the last one using Ninja, came second in the first one. So I would imagine he's probably still going to be playing Ninja no matter what, which is an interesting matchup if the field starts having a lot of warriors in it. So, it will definitely be interesting to see. I'm also interested to see if the guy who went 5-0 with Wizard can do that again in the Swiss rounds, and see if he
Yeah,
can go
well,
1-2 in the top 8.
yeah, well, what will be the dash numbers? I'm wondering. That's my key one. After, I mean, because dash, regardless, still put 2 players into the top 4 in Dunedin.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how dash players react to that. But obviously, yep. So that's August 1st. The big one, though, the biggest weekend of this whole Road to National season will be the 8th and 9th of August. So that is going to be, not only is it a double weekend for New Zealand, it is also another Taiwanese event. So we have Road to Nats on the 8th at Cerberus Games in Wellington. And we have, on the same day, we have Cat's Footprints Fengshan. And then on the Sunday, the 9th of August, we will have Road to Nats at Calico Keep, which is up in Paraparaumu, if I'm right. It's north of Wellington. Forgive me, Peter, Peter's the owner of Calico. Forgive me for my lack of knowledge of my own country. But I'm looking forward, because I've never been there, and I get to visit. I'm going to be down there. Yep. Hey, Nick, I'm looking forward to hanging out with some of my Dunedin crew that are coming up during that weekend. But yeah, 3 Road to Nats. That means there's going to be 24 deck lists to be typed up on Monday to be published.
I'm glad that's not my job anymore.
Yeah, Ian is so glad it's not. And Ian had to do it. We have a slightly easier way of doing the deck lists now compared to when Ian had to painfully do the deck lists previously. So basically, the next 2 weeks we've got 4. Well, next 2 weekends we've got 4 Road to Nats, 2 Taiwan, 2 New Zealand. It's going to be pretty exciting to see those lists coming up, and then we've got a little bit of a gap after that. Suppose the only other thing.
A couple of comments there. Kale, Road to Nats in Wellington looks like it's going to be a mini calling with the skill level likely to be much higher than the last constructed calling, which that's a big call. But I think there has been a lot of games played since the last constructed calling, so it could be right there. I'm very excited that I am going to be making it out to Wellington. That's been confirmed today, which is cool. And yeah, it's gonna be a good time. Double weekends are always an interesting affair, because do you commit to one deck for both, or do you have your backup deck if the deck that you played the first day doesn't treat you well? It's going to be an interesting weekend, and as you said, with three throughout the world, it definitely is going to throw up some interesting stats metagame wise. We've got some questions coming in, Jacob, which we will hold off on those until we get Jacob on. Other than that, how was Dunedin?
Well, yeah, let's get out of a good housekeeping into my Dunedin trip. Most people would have seen my post on Facebook, but Dunedin was good enough to make me sad, basically. That's I think the way I'm going to phrase it. Yeah, it was such a good weekend that I was genuinely a little bit down and a little bit upset as I left the Deep South. So fortunately, I got to fly down on Friday morning, which meant my flight left at 7:45. But by the time you get up, and I had to catch a shuttle, I think I was up at 4:30ish, caught a shuttle 5:30. Got to the airport way earlier than the shuttle. The shuttle thing said. But otherwise, got down to Dunedin. Greg, I was actually funny story. I was on the same flight as Matt Rogers. I'm at the airport and I think, I'll probably see Matt. And then I go through security. I'm like, still haven't seen Matt. I'm sure I'll see Matt on the other side. I'm waiting around. Don't see Matt yet. Boarding started. So I'm like, all right, I'm sure Matt's, just going through security. I get onto the plane and then I get a message from Matt saying, hey, has it started boarding yet? I think I'm still about 4 minutes out, because Matt got, because obviously Matt runs a store that was going down
Yeah.
to the Tauranga Armageddon, so he
Right.
basically had to do some catch-up jobs that got missed by a staff member or something
Right.
like that. And literally, I was on the plane and he's texting me, and I'm like, dude, I talked to one of the flight attendants and she said, well, it will close soon. And I talked to one of them and he said, well, if your friend's not here, we'll be deboarding him in 2 minutes' time. And just as the flight attendant said that, I saw Matt at the other end of the the plane just boarding, and I was like, I'm sure Matt would have caught another flight if he'd missed. But it was kind of funny. But he got there.
That's a stressful way to start a weekend, though.
Oh yeah. No, that's all right. Well, Matt left it with just enough time. He wasn't late. He was. What do they say? What did Gandalf say? A wizard arrives exactly when he means to. We got picked up by Greg Mansfield from Dice Jar. I dropped off my bags at my accommodation. I ended up basically walking around Dunedin for the day, visited the game store at Megazone, visited Dice Jar, visited Fable Traders, caught up with all the stores, went to the Armory event on Friday night. We had 19 players for drafts, so we had a pot of 10, and then what would have been the 9th player on the draft pod was Stephen Steele, which hopefully many of you might know. He's a fanatical fab collector, and he was also the owner of Steel Gaming when it was around in Dunedin. So he was like, I don't really want to be like the 9th person on the pod, put a buy in. So he decided to step out, but he had already paid his entry. So Greg was like, here's your boosters, man, and gave him the boosters. So Stephen dutifully opens his boosters and pulls a tunic out of his boosters. And we're like, only Stephen, only Stephen. So the event the next day had a great turnout. We had 24 players. Unfortunately, we just like a couple. There's a few people that couldn't make it in time that played Fab and Dunedin's. So we were just a few players off beating the Auckland record. It was a great day. It was a great top 8. There's people like Pat McRae, who's actually one of the owners of Fable Traders. Jesse Watts, who runs the events at Game Store at Megazone, was in the top 8. We had obviously like Nick Anderson, Jacob, Matt from Auckland. We had, did I mention we had the legendary Dream Brumby from Wellington? We had hometown boys. Well, I suppose Jesse is a hometown boy, but we had Nick Spence, Daniel Reel, and who am I forgetting? Is there anyone else I'm forgetting? Because we had 3 Aucklanders, 1 Wellingtonian, and 4 Dunedinites. In the end, got down to the semi-finals, which was Auckland on Dunedin and Auckland on Dunedin. And then it got down to Matt and Jacob in the finals. And at the end of the day, Warrior won.
Warrior prevailed, yeah.
Yeah. It was a great match. Highlight of the day after that was for those of you that have seen the Jacob Matt Rogers Simpsons meme. We got to recreate it in real life. I have the photos, and as soon as I get a chance to edit them up properly, I hope to unleash the greatest Fab meme of all time. And we went out for some food and some drinks afterwards. It was just very cool. So shout outs to meeting Stephen, Daniel, Kenny, who else? Nick, of course, meeting Greg, Janelle and Pat, Jesse. There's people, all the people I lost to at the Armory event as well with my brute deck. It was super cool. People like Zenith, Bo, Rowan. Sorry, I'm bad with names, but big shout out to all those people I met through the weekend. And as I said, it was a bit sad as I flew out on Sunday. Dunedin was a great time. I hope Wellington does the same.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to it. And interesting, we don't know what was won, do we? At the calling at Rhodes.
No, the envelope stayed sealed.
Stayed sealed, that's an interesting thing because obviously, until it's open or until all the other things opened, it's Schrodinger's promo, right? It could be alive or it could be dead.
Hey, it could be like a foil cracked bauble for all we know.
Yeah,
It could be anything. It's Schrodinger's bauble. We don't know. It could be an unfoil cracked bauble. We could have put a joke prize in there. You never know. You do not know. Although I see Nick is saying no. Apparently, it's still sealed. It's still sealed down
excellent,
there.
excellent.
So
All
yeah.
right. Well,
Although
should we get into the real reason people are actually tuned in?
well, that's me. But the other reason I suppose is our guest star this week.
That's right. All right. Let me just do some quick adjustment, and by the magic of moving the camera, hey! There we are.
Oh, we've got a Jacob all along. Hey.
He was there all along.
And I notice also he's dressed for success in red. Red is a color. The red is a color that you need to wear if you're going to win a road to Nats. If I remember, when you're wearing that at Vagabonds.
No, I wasn't actually wearing my blue cashmere sweater instead. Just red's my color, man. I just have to live it.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
In fact, it was interesting because when I saw the photo going into the finals, I was like, "Oh, Jacob's not looking as sharp as he did at Vags. Is that going to play against him?" But no, it's great. Jacob, welcome to the Savage Land Studios here in my humble little abode, which is actually the Coffee Guy office, just with banners. But it's great to have you here. We've got some questions for you,
Awesome.
but before we start, let's do how we usually start with all our guests. Tell us a little bit about your background in gaming and how you found Fab and how you got into Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, absolutely. So I originally started off playing trading card games from the age of 7 or 8 in a small little town called Warkworth, playing at Red Z Game Fanatics. There was literally 2 guys in their mum's basement who ran a card store there. It was the only card store for miles and miles. But I saw them playing like games on the tabletop. My parents never let me have like a PlayStation or a computer or nothing. So I was like, oh, for games. This is amazing. So I started playing Magic. And then forever lost my wallet into the vortex of trading card games from there on. And from there, my interest in card games only grew. I think I've ended up, I tallied it up at some point, and I played approximately like 26 TCGs over the years. Ooh. So I've played almost everything in the trading card world. But so I played Magic competitively for a little while. I did end up going to Pro Tour one time. So I claim to fame for Magic. And then obviously day 2 a bunch of GPs and all that jazz. But as how I got into Fab, I'd actually quit playing trading card games, focused on my career several years ago. And I went into Card Merchant in West City like 3 weeks before Auckland 10K. And I saw Matt Rogers.
And this was the constructed Auckland 10K as well.
Yes, the constructed Auckland 10K. And I was just having a chat with Matt. And he's like, "Oh, you should see this new game. It's called Flesh and Blood. It's pretty awesome. It's made by James White. You know who James White is? He's a pretty good guy." So I was sitting there just looking at it, and I was like, "Is it really that good?" And I said, "Yeah, it's pretty awesome." And then there's like a $10,000 tournament coming up in like 3 weeks. So I was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a bit of me." It's like, "Do you mind teaching me how to play?" Yeah, sure. Sit down, go play a game. I beat him, of course. Well,
I hate to break it to you, man, but. That's demoing 101, right? You let the new guy win the first game.
No, this is Matt Rogers we're talking about. Like, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He still runs the store. Right?
Hey, if there's one thing I know about Fab is we've learned to play. You never win the first time. It's all about showing how skillful the game is.
Well, he obviously did a good job because I think I ended up buying 5 cases of Welcome to Wraith on that same hour. So I just had their cracking packs. I started off with a box, then I asked for a case, and then I asked for another case, and then I just asked Matt, "Hey, how many more packs do you have in the store?" "Yep, I'll buy those 2. And I sat there cracking packs for a good 10 hours, and I initially came in for 15 minutes. So I was.
Were we playing a tournament that day?
I think you were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I believe that was an insane case day because I believe Regan also bought a case that day and got like real sick pulls out of it as well.
Yeah. So yeah,
I was gonna say, good thing you spent all these years working on your career, Jacob, so you could afford all those cases.
Yeah, exactly. So I can afford a proper TCG habit, as it were. But no, I did pretty well. I played like a ton of games in 2 weeks. I got skilled up a bit, leveled up, as it were, and yeah, I managed to make top 8 of that, which was awesome. It's been hooked ever since.
Yeah, and what did you play at that calling?
I played my favorite class, which is Guardian. Swinging the hammer all day, singing my signature song. It's hammer time, as I'm sure all my opponents are well aware. That's why my Steam handle is hammer time.
I think it's quite funny that Bravo, again, when I saw Bravo, the MC Hammer was the first one that comes to my mind. But I think of all the characters, he has the most memes from different areas, because I know Zach, I think it's Zach, Team Covenant, he's a huge Beauty and the Beast fan, and so he calls Bravo Gaston, and he sings the "No One Plays Cards Like Gaston" song when he's playing Bravo. So yes, Bravo is probably the most memeable of the original 4 characters.
Yeah, it does help that he has a glorious body and wears some shades rather well.
Excellent. So now you've got some questions that we had put forward by the viewers there, Alan.
Yeah, well, let's go to those now. So I do have, and I think somebody, I have a new question from Mr. Spence as well. Give me a sec. I'll just post that on our page as well.
Well, while you're doing that, while you're doing that, we'll answer a few of the not real questions from the chat. So, how much RAM does your computer have?
It depends. You count my server as being my PC. If you find that my computer with the most amount of RAM that I have is 256 gigabytes of RAM, which is more storage than most people have on their hard drives. It's
and that leads us into the second question, I think. Does Dash have a Steam account?
I would think she would. She would quite enjoy it.
In between inventions.
Yeah, in between inventions. She's got to get her inspiration from somewhere, right?
Exactly.
That's
what
right.
have you got for us, Alan?
All right, we've got a few questions. I think after these questions, I really want to get Jacob to tell us his story of these 3 Road to Nationals. But we've got a long question from Mr. Spence in Dunedin. So Nick asks, after winning the first Road to Nats and placing well in top 8 for the second one, what were his expectations coming into Dunedin? Was he worried or was he confident? And what were the realities of his expectations? And how was his experience? What was his experiences on the day? How were his matches and how tough were his close games? So basically, I think Nick's question is this: Jacob, tell us everything. Tell us absolutely everything.
That's a big question to break down in my head. But yeah, just starting from the first Road to Nationals, I guess. I came in with the idea that I probably wasn't going to do that well. Coming from the online meta, I had no idea what the paper meta was going to look like at all. I just picked what I thought was the most consistently powerful deck, which is Dash. I think everyone can kind of agree on that. It's just most consistent deck. So I sat there, I played a ton of games, probably the most hours on Dash that anyone else had. So I felt like I had a solid advantage in the mirror as well going forwards. And yeah, I started off on a heater, just took out the Swiss like a steamroller. It was feeling pretty good, bolstered my confidence, and then I started to believe, like, oh, I can actually do this. I can actually win. Maybe my top 8 curse is finally killed. Like previous to this first Road to Nationals, I never got past my quarterfinal match in top 8 for any bad format. I was consistently making top 8. Yeah. I was just always losing out on that. So yeah, I finally decided, you know what? Like, this is my day. Like, I'm gonna win it. I'm gonna at least win my first round. My first round against who did I play in the first round? I can't quite remember. But in the second round, I played against Carol. And I played against Ashland Ninja. That's what I played.
Yes.
And it was
I
a
knew
game.
you played one of the ninjas.
Yeah. And then after that, I played against Carol and Brute. And then, of course, I versed Matt Rogers in the final. Now, that was an interesting game because Matt had hidden what his true intentions with his deck were during the Swiss rounds. He was very much a bad control dash in the Swiss. I think he was trying to cheese me out a little bit. Luckily, it didn't really change my sideboarding options at all. But then, yeah, it was a bit of surprise, bit of eyebrows raising when I saw him racing along with his boosty boys on turn one. There's big high octane turns, but yeah, just managed to be consistent, slowly grind him out in the finals of that match. And then obviously I did pretty well at the next Road to Nationals, being top 4 at the Hobby Master Road to Nationals. And then how that set my expectations for Dunedin, I wasn't really sure. The entire South Island meta is a completely unknown beast.
Yeah.
You guys could have been anything from the worst players in the world to the best players in the world. You haven't really had any high profile events. We haven't really seen any deck lists come out from those areas either. So I didn't know really what to expect. I was just like, you know what, look, I've already done well. I won my 1 golden leathers. That pays for all my other stuff, you know. It pays for all my flights down to go to all the other Road to Nationals and stuff, which was really awesome. So I wasn't actually going to be able to attend Dunedin or a couple of the other Road to Nats without it. So that was really cool. And when I got there on the day, everyone was so lovely. I rolled in at 2 a.m. after driving down from Christchurch to save my $20 on flights. Like the adventure that I am. We got in. There were the lovely couple at Fable Traders. Janelle and Pat were such lovely people, letting us, me, Nick, and Sam stay there over the weekend. They were really, really cool. It was awesome to get to know them. And then rolling in to the day of Dunedin. It was good. I was feeling pumped. I recently moved in with Matt, so we came up with some strategies for the day. So
what a power couple!
Is real. Yeah, the power couple.
Are you and Matt the greatest power couple in Fab at the moment?
I think that's safe to say. If we're just going by results alone, that we had.
Wait a minute. I'm disappointed with you, Alan. I'm disappointed you let a perfect chance for a wrestling reference there, and you let it slide. I think what you are asking is, are they the 2-man power trip? Ooh. And I think that is it's more to the point than the power couple.
Well, I was actually thinking who's the Randy Savage and who's the Miss Elizabeth in this relationship.
All right, that one I
got. But I have a question, just to slightly interrupt this, because I played you. Well, I didn't play you, but I was at our Hobby League on Thursday, and we'd done some testing earlier in the week. And I was a bit surprised with what you played in Dunedin.
Yeah.
Now, tell the people why, because you told me today, and I was like, oh, that's very, very, very funny reason, because there was a few theories on why you swapped up. But tell the people why you didn't play the deck you played at Hobby League.
Okay, so everyone knows I like my shinies, right? And so I have 2 full foil constructor decks, one of them being Dash, one of them being my Runeblade deck. And I was up relatively late the night before my flight, and I had to go to work during the day, so I couldn't really check anything. I packed all my stuff. Now, I made a couple of last-minute changes to my Runeblade deck, which I was going to play, and it turns out that I forgot to put a couple of cards in my deck box, and the alternatives would be playing 15 to 20 non-foil cards that I would be borrowing from other people and play my Runeblade deck, or play my entirely shiny Dash deck. And yeah, I'm a bit of a magpie when it comes to that. So yeah, that's how I ended up playing Dash.
Yeah. All right, I'm not going to fault you on that one. As a foil fan myself, I'm not going to fault you on that. But I was thinking we should drag you over the coals over not playing Viserai, but you've sold me on that. You know, you've sold yeah, because. Yeah, just having a deck that's not all foil, non-foil or foil, not halfway between. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's correct. So how did the so obviously we know where you ended up in Dunedin, but how was the Swiss for you? Did you play many of the hometown people, or I know. Obviously, being on the top tables, you would have come across like some of people that you're a bit more familiar with, and Nick. And did you run into Gene as well?
I did run into Gene during the Swiss, but first round top 8.
Yeah.
So I ended up my first couple of rounds. I think my first 2 rounds I played against both local players. The first one was a warrior player who was playing a very aggressive style, go very, very, very tall Dorinthia deck, where he was just going plus blow on the blade, plus on the blade, plus on the blade, plus on the blade, plus smack for 15. And I was like, all right, it seems like a game plan. Luckily for me, my deck is obscenely stacked in the warrior matchup, but we'll get to that later. Like I constructed my deck basically. All right, I know that's going to play warrior. I know that a couple of other good people from Dunedin will be playing warrior. All right, it's time to build the warrior killer. Ironically, I did lose in the finals to warrior, but that's all right.
The best laid plans, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I versed a myriad of different decks across the day, playing against Ninja. I also played an Azalea player in round 2, I believe, which was cool. It was very interesting to see the list that they had there. And then
were they playing the heavy red line, or were they playing more of some mid range?
They were playing like a more mid rangey build, kind of focusing on like setting up for big turns with the dominated arrows.
Cool.
It was a bit different to see. But then I believe it was in round 4, I played against the legendary Nick from Dunedin himself, and I gave him a bit of a bashing, or dashing, should I say? Luckily, he managed to take down a few lessons from that, and our game during the semi-finals was one of the better games I had all day. It was super tight, super close. It came down to one pistol shot apiece, and luckily my deck just had just a little bit more extra pistol power. The blues power in my chambers a bit more. Just managed to eke it out there, but it was a very, very, very tight game. Then of course I got smashed in Ninja by round 5, welded by the legendary Nick Anderson. On Ninja, he did draw the nuts a couple of times, as you guys probably saw on stream, and I did miss 1 or 2 triggers. That's all good. That's,
well, didn't Nick tells me he managed to get you on the a plunder run? Plunder run was your you forgot about his the plus 3 off a red plunder run, and that was part of your demise.
It's even worse because I had the defense reaction in my hand for the plus. But I was, for some reason, I thought I hadn't passed like the initial priority, and I said pass priority again after I'd already said it. So I got myself a little bit there, caught between a bit of a hard place. Yeah,
tough.
But no, then obviously I had the one of the best games. No, I think it's the best game of Fab I ever played, which was that game against Matt Rogers in the final. That was a beautiful game. Like honestly, if you watch it from start to finish, it is such an awesome game. And how Matt came up with his plan of how to beat me was really cool as well. And one little mistake cost me the game, whereas Matt played a perfect game and absolutely deserved the win.
Yeah, it did. And watching it, because I watched it live, there were a couple of times where I was like, I'm not sure who's going to win this. Like it was very close the whole way through, and there was a moment where I thought you were ahead, and then Matt, as you said, Matt played almost flawlessly in that match, and really, I mean, I'm not sure if the match is still up, but if it is still up and you haven't seen it, definitely go. It is a masterclass. 2 guys at the top of their game, really showing you how the game plays. Like when you actually don't just make terrible mistakes like me and Alan.
Yeah, but fortunately nobody is watching us on stream, Ian, so it's okay. But quite a key play in that last game was because you did actually towards the end of that game, Jacob, you actually dropped quite low on life, because I think you dropped to 1 at one point against Matt. Was like, how calculated, like, what was your strategy going that low? Did you? Yeah.
So I actually did have a strategy going forwards. If I blocked there, I would basically lose to any secondary reprise card on Matt's side from like early on in the chain. So I couldn't block there. So my idea was just to block up as hard as I could because I knew I had an immovable in my hand. that I was ready to put into my arsenal, as well as I had heart in my next, like 2 draws down. So after 2 turns, I would draw heart and be able to attack again. So my strategy was, I know that he's been pitching quite a few red cards, so he's going to have some really powerful turns lined up. So I was just going to put my whole hand in front of his hand on those 2 turns, pitch my heart, gain that extra resource, and then I have fully set up chambers and a tunic. So sorry, I have a fully set up chambers, and I have Teklo heart. So my plan was to have everything fully loaded, go for 3 shots, strip him of 3 cards after blocking up for those turns, and then just edge him out from there. So if I would have survived that 1 extra turn, I would have pitched the heart, pulled the head, and just been able to pistol him into oblivion. But unfortunately, it didn't quite happen. He had the last red Iron Song response in his deck to pull off the Singing Steel Blade. That was just enough to win. No, it was a really awesome game. It was a beautiful game, in fact, and I don't mind losing beautiful games.
Yeah, but also I see Matt also managed to get, you had an Enchanting Melody down that got that got
That was
shunted. Was that pretty major, or how did you feel about that?
That was game losing. Enchanting Melody is so important in the Warrior matchup, and I only played 2. It effectively checks any defense reaction, any attack reaction that they have for Dawnblade. So you never need to overblock, even if you have the reaction. It means you can arsenal the reaction afterwards. It just puts them so far behind if you're able to stop the Dawnblade without triggering the Melody. That there's no way that they can through. The card is absurd in the matchup. It's probably one of the best cards universally against Warrior. And my thinking was that I know that Matt has been on and off between playing 1 and 2 shunts in his deck versus Dash. And I know that he only plays, I was pretty sure he was only playing 1, and I thought I saw it earlier in the pitch order, but it turns out he was playing 2 and got me. But I think I should have just waited on the pistol shot there. There's no point risking it there when Melody is that important in the matchup. I think that was my one mistake during the whole game, and that's the mistake that lost me the game. So
yeah, no. When I saw that online, I was like, oh wow, that is a great play by Matt. And that's the sort of play that you see from people who have really put the time in and know matchups and stuff like that. Because a lot of people may not have actually put those two things together with the shunt and the melody. And the melody, I know when we were testing, and I was playing Kano, I learned very quickly about reacting to the melody coming into play to set up a Kano to see if I can chip away before it gets stuck on the board. And yeah, being able to get rid of that melody before his attack turn was amazing play, which yeah, as you said, it was the play that really turned the game.
Well, I have got word that the match is up because Dice Jar Games did both stream to YouTube actually most of the event. They had a feature match every round, and obviously covering the top 8. So maybe somebody in the chat can post the link to it, because it's on the Dice Jar Flesh and Blood YouTube page, which I don't have a link for immediately. So Nick, if you're out there, maybe if you could post it. But one of the great things about the weekend is so many games got streamed. I think you were on the stream for a lot of games, Jacob. I think you're on stream like maybe 3 or 4 times during the course of a day.
I think it was 4. Yeah, it will be at least 4, maybe 5 of my games were streamed throughout the tournament out of the 8 games that I played.
Nice.
So here's a little question, because because I don't think we've asked this, but how does being on stream affect your game? Do you get any nerves? How does it does it affect you?
I think honestly I play better when I'm on stream than when I'm playing regularly. It kills my bad habits, right? Like sometimes I get a bit too casual playing games, which is just a bit of a whatever habit. Yeah. But it really tightens up my plays, I think, and I always double check to make sure that my tunic's ticking, my cards are being drawn appropriately, everything is being displayed properly, all the information is there for my opponents, and just making sure I'm playing really correct. Yeah, exactly. It makes me play very, very clean as opposed to doing 101 shortcuts.
Pasco. Yeah. I get that. I don't get on stream as much as Jacob does, but I do know that I feel like I'm being more pedantic's probably the wrong word, but being more precise.
Yeah. I feel like I'm a sharp edge when I'm playing on screen as opposed to a wildly swinging machete. It's just chopping down.
Yeah.
All right. So we got
let's
more questions there because we got a couple on.
Yeah, I've got some more questions here, and I think after that, we'll what I want to do is get Jacob's thoughts on the future. But let's jump to a question. So I have where's my? All right, so I have one silly question, I suppose, from Aaron, and then I have a really good question from God, was that? I believe not Aaron, from Nick Butcher, I believe. Hopefully, or did I think it was Nick. Or maybe was it? Well, it was one of the Nicks. I'm sorry, one Nick Spencer Butcher.
I'm Nick.
So anyway, Aaron Houston asks, after how good Jesse and I made him look in these photos, how likely is he to thank us on stream? Well, he hasn't thanked you yet, Aaron. So really, just driving fact. Do you have any compliments for the team of Like Butter Media, Jacob?
I would like to take this chance to thank Aaron and his team from the bottom of my heart for making me look as fabulous as possible. So I can look good in all my victory photos for top 8, etc. Well done to you guys. You're doing the real work.
I was secretly hoping you just have radio silence there and just go.
Yeah, like who?
Yeah. Okay, so here's the serious question from Nick. All right, so. Question: what advice would dashing Jacob Pearson give to players like me who are yet to top a road to nationals and really want to get to that next level? So I think that was from Nick Butcher.
Yeah.
I think it was from Nick Butcher.
The biggest tip I'd give to anyone who wants to try and break the barrier from going like doing 3 and 2 consistently in Swiss, go and wanting to make that top 8. Would probably be to just be really self-analytical after your game. Just try and think back to where you kind of started losing the game. What were the types of decisions that you were making around that time? It's not so much as thinking like in precise terms. It's the game of Flesh and Blood is very much a game of flow, right? It's very much a game of tempo. So the way that you're giving up flow to gain some sort of advantage, with that advantage being life, right? You're paying cards in order to gain or lose life, right? So everything is being like a resource, and it's about finding the right place in that flow for each individual matchup that you're playing, and figuring out how to find the ideal path through the flow, I think, is the best way to become a better player. And that means being really self-analytical, so understanding the types of plays you're making, understanding why they were possibly wrong, or even asking your opponent after your game, like, do you think there were any places where I was playing wrong, or maybe I was playing around something too much, and just little things like that, to try and just push yourself to try and get better.
This is quite often when we get a chance to test. I quite often at the end of the game will talk to Jacob about going back to specific plays and going, I could have done this, I could have done this. What do you think that was the right move, or should I have gone the other way? And getting that point of view from the person that you played is again, I think, a big thing, because like you can be hard on yourself, and you can sometimes you can see clearly where you went wrong, but sometimes you don't see the mistakes, whereas the person who's playing you can go, well, yeah, I was expecting you to do this and you just didn't, and stuff like that. So I think that is a very good point of asking your opponent as well as analyzing yourself.
All right, we have a question from Jordan here. We have I think Jordan's is a good question. Very specific question. Ninja matchup.
How do you feel about deck? Yeah. How do you feel about the Ninja matchup with the mid-range deck compared to the control? I'm guessing we're talking about Dash.
Yeah. If we're talking about Dash, playing from the Dash perspective, I feel like Ninja is very easy playing control, and if you know what you're doing, it is insanely hard to lose playing mid-range. The reason why that is the case is when you're playing mid-range, it's similar to playing control dash. You're just blocking and finding your moments, except you have this huge tempo boost and high octane where you're able to push out a ton of damage. You're able to push out a lot of resources onto the board with Teklo cores. It's just an obscene amount of advantage that you can generate there. On top of having a really solid base of high blocking equipment to be able to block those combo turns, to be able to shut down those early combo enablers like whelming, surging, or league tap rising knee. So just having that equipment there to block in either matchup is very, very strong. And coming from the control player's perspective, there is a chance that you don't draw your second chamber early enough, and you don't have enough to do on the ninja off turns. Because the ninja's occasionally going to have off turns, and you really need to be able to push advantage when they're not pushing you hard. You need to really make sure you're using your whole hand. One thing that Control Dash can struggle with against Ninja is not being able to use your whole hand effectively when the ninja just passes it back to you. Or if they're trying to set up, maybe they just want to Arsenal 100 and they just conduct to you twice. You're not really going to block with both cards. You're not really getting a lot of advantage there. Whereas mid-range dash can basically always use its whole hand. It can always just swap modes and go, all right, I'm just going to hit you with 4 attacks. I'm going to shoot you with 3 pistols. I'm just going to fly all over you. So that's my perspective on the matchup, at least.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, probably no more questions on the stream, but my questions is probably, about the metagame going forwards. So obviously you're going to be in Wellington and Paraparaumu. So what's your battle plan coming into it? And then second question is what we asked Matt as well, what are your hopes for the future of Fab? And probably most specifically, what do you want out of Crucible?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with the Road to Nats meta for Wellington first. My perspective on it is that I'm personally most likely not going to be playing Dash. I'm testing a lot of different lists at the moment and a lot of different ways to try and push some sort of edge over there. It is the most common deck that I think that people will be wanting to pick up and try to play. Now, I might have an advantage there, having inherently more time with the deck and understand the deck a little bit better. However, that everyone's decks are going to be tilted towards Dash, right? Doesn't matter how consistent the deck is. If everyone in the format is pointing the finger at you saying you're the bad guy, you're going to have a bad time. They're just going to play the matchups more. They're going to learn how to beat it. And I
one they test against the most.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's going to have experience playing Dash, which is why I'm trying to look for something that might not be as consistent as Dash, but will have the unknown factor of people not having much playtesting experience against them, such as Runeblade and possibly Kano, because those are the decks that no one really knows how to play against. And I think that's a huge advantage you can have, especially with the high-level players that I think will be playing in Wellington as well. Having that advantage where they haven't had as much time to test again, they don't know the matchup in and out. And I think that's the edge that I'm trying to go for, rather than the brute consistency of playing Dash. As for the other side of your question, the thing that I'm looking forward most going forward in Fab and Crucible is to have more blues that pitch for 3, cost 3, and defend for 3, so I can play Guardian again. All right, I want to launch that. Guardian doesn't need much. Just things like this little bit of niggly advantage, and I'd be more than happy playing Guardian again. It's my favorite class. I love swinging that hammer. I love planning for the late game, sitting at my
there's a question. If they give you a weapon that isn't a hammer, are you going to look at it, or is Anathos like that is a big question, right?
A big question. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Is it an equally like big item? You know, is it something chunky? I could probably
maybe it's 2 small hammers. Like two one-handed hammers.
I think it's a 2-handed hammer. It's like you've got a hammer on each end.
Yeah. But apart from that, looking forward to is just a huge amount of diversity in the ways that decks can be played. I think the additional weapons as well, having multiple weapons in the same deck list is really spicy.
Yeah.
Like having the ability to have your opponent not know what kind of game plan you're going for, and just that little bit more intrigue, I guess, when it comes to like how classes will play into each other,
and versatility
as well. Absolutely. So it's can change your style of deck, I guess, more based on the matchup that you're expecting coming from the other side, which would be really cool. Also, traps is really interesting.
Yes, that was an interesting thing that got announced on the Fab Twitter. I had no idea about that, and it's going to be very interesting.
No.
Hmm.
I still like the theory that all these hints are just one card, and it's a
One
mechanologist card,
massive card.
and it
That'd be
costs
awesome.
2.
It'd be so
Costs
perfect.
2.
It's gonna be, and it's gonna be the size of a Transformers character card, so it's just gonna be like this big and like
Yeah.
massive. That'd be crazy.
All right.
Alrighty.
I've got one last question for Jacob. Ian.
Right.
I'm on a roll.
Yeah.
I'm on a roll tonight. Questions for Jacob. All right. So this is a one. So I suppose this maybe goes back to Kale. Kale was one of the person who was enemy number 1. With popularizing Bravo. How do you feel in this fab generation to be the one that you've made Dash enemy of the state, public enemy number 1. Even Matt doesn't get this kind of crap. Basically, it's like Jacob Pearson has made Dash the villain. How do you feel about that? Is this unwanted, or are you happy? Are you happy in your villainy?
Bask in the glory.
It may be undeserved, but it is definitely not unwanted. I kind of bask in it a little bit, I enjoy playing the villain character. If we're playing D&D, I'm always the chaotic neutral guy who always just goes on the trip burning the forest down,
Born healed. He's a born healed.
Yeah.
So I don't mind the notoriety, but I suppose it gives me some sort of reputation as an evil person, which kind of helps you when you sit down at the table. They have that fear, that innate sort of hatred towards you. They might mess up some of their terms because of that. And I'll take my extra 1%.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, we don't have any more questions on there. I'm exhausted. Have you got anything left for Jacob, Ian?
Not fab wise, I think. So let's get into, well, kind of actually, because Kurt's Corner, we didn't really talk about it because basically Jacob came over and we had a game of fab before we got on, so we didn't preempt this. But Alan, you and I had an idea for Kurt's Corner. And it is semi-fab related because we have been talking a lot about pop culture in Kurt's Corner, and this is usually when the numbers start falling off. So we're semi keeping this fab related. Obviously, fab is a great 1v1 hero v hero type game, and we were talking about. We talked a little bit about this with Matt off air last week, but quite often games like this will look at pulling a license in that fits into the realm of the game, like in Soul Calibur, for instance. They had Darth Vader come into Soul Calibur, and they had Kuma come into the last Tekken and stuff like that. So if you could bring a character from any other game or pop culture, like movie or comic or anything, is there a hero or a villain that you would love to play in the world of Flesh and Blood? In the Flesh and Blood card game, you could have any character. Is there someone that you think A would work in the world of Flesh and Blood, and B, you'd really like to play in Flesh and Blood?
Yeah. I actually have one instantly, which is surprising because I thought I was going to be come up with something. While you were talking, I had some character instantly come to mind, which is Ratchet from the Ratchet and Clank PlayStation series,
good.
who would be an awesome fit for mechanologist. He loves tinkering with his ship. He loves fixing stuff up. He always makes the most absurd weapons possible, the craziest gadgets. And he just flies from place to place, fixing people's problems. I feel like he'd be a perfect contender for some solid, cool weapon action.
Is there a villain?
Like you could have Clank as your item.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Is there a villain that you'd like as a character?
How about you, Alan?
I had two, because I had a hero and a villain lined up. So the hero that I'd love to see, because I've always wanted a decent, this character to be in a card game. I'd like to see the Doctor. I've been a huge Doctor Who nerd since I was a kid, and I get to see the Doctor. Yeah, and maybe like that would be the hand, and maybe like the chest
your
piece could
equipment's
actually
cool
be
because you can have,
canine.
but your equipment's cool because, like, for your chest piece, you can have like the scarf from Tom Baker. You can have like the hat from the Sixth Doctor. You can have the cane.
I'd want to fit somehow, like have Canine, if everyone remembers Canine, the little metal dog. That would be like a cool weapon, or maybe that would be a young hero. My only other one is a villain from one of my favorite horror films, because his weapon would be cool. So one of my favorite horror films of all time is the Phantasm series of films. So the villain in that is the tall man who's kind of like this kind of endless, unkillable, undead kind of creature. But his weapon are these little silver balls that have little spikes and drills attached to them and basically fly up and sink into people's heads. And like I was like, oh, that would be a really cool weapon to have on it. So yeah, but that's I could already see it on a card right here and now. What about you, Ian?
Well, I have a couple like you. A couple, obviously, probably almost as much as wrestling. If you've watched this podcast at all, you'll know that Princess Bride is one of my favorite movies, and Inigo Montoya, I think, would be amazing in this game. Like, again, very similar to Dorinthia, but having like a one-handed sword that has a different that you have a different skill if it's on the left or right, just like how in the fight with the Dread Pirate Roberts, they halfway through swaps from being left-handed to right-handed. That'd be kind of cool. And then the other character that I think would be amazing in Flesh and Blood, and I think again really really work in the world, is Colin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod from Highlander. Would be like a cool way to have a big claymore, two-handed sword, but also just some really cool things like the Sigil of Solace to represent the being immortal. So maybe when you hit 0 life, you go back to 5 life the first time, but you die if you no longer have your head equipment.
Yeah,
is what kills you. Kills you. So basically, your head equipment is actually your head, and like you cash it in for 5 extra life.
I know. I like your Inigo Montoya because the mechanic could be at the beginning of any event. You call out one other player in the room as like the 6-fingered man, and if you face them in the round, you get a bonus to them. So you call somebody out at the beginning, and like my name is Inigo Montoya. I will have my revenge.
That is very cool. Well, excellent. And now we are on a little bit of a tight schedule to close up because I hate to do it to Jacob. He already lost to Matt once in the week. He's losing time again because Dice Jar have told us that they're doing the deck tech with them tonight. So we will wrap this up. But Jacob, we want to give you a chance before we go. Is there anything you would like to say to the fab world that's watching? Anything?
Absolutely. The one thing that comes to mind is I just can't thank everyone in Dunedin enough for their hospitality. It was such an awesome experience coming down. I didn't know what to expect really, but everyone was so lovely and just so happy to welcome us into their homes. And I just can't thank you all enough for being such awesome people. And it's great to see that our community is just filled with people wanting to help each other and just experience this great game together, which is really cool.
Cool, excellent, man. And we are looking forward to
Wellington.
We are looking forward to seeing what Jacob. I want to see that Viscera deck actually at Header Roads because I have played against versions of it in testing, and it's a spicy meatball. It is. I think you'll throw a few people off. It is a lot of fun. And it's the sort of thing that maybe Alan needs to help him try and win some more points because.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Well, we didn't have any games over the weekend, over the last week. It means that this belt is nicely staying with me. Closest still three games ahead.
That's right. Once I have Jacob's Viscera technology, Unbeatable. Unbeatable. All right, well, Ian, we have actually, I've got two final things, something to hype for next week, but we haven't asked Jacob the question that we ask all guests.
Oh, you're right.
You're right. So, Jacob, who is your favorite wrestler?
Rey Mysterio.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
One-eyed Ray or?
One-eyed Ray, yeah.
One-eyed Ray.
This has been good. All our recent guests have really turned it on and given us good answers. I'm super excited. Yeah, oh, good old Ray. What's your favorite Ray? What's your favorite Ray match? Or when were you a Ray fan?
Like 2000, okay, so I never actually got to see any live matches for Ray, but I remember watching the runs from like 2004 to 2006. And just some of the mad elbow drops that he got in some of his matches. It was awesome. I just remember him just being such a unique character, and just cutting through the BS a little bit. And he's got a cool mask.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
That masks work. They're incredibly comfortable. I think everyone's going to be wearing them in the future.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so. Thank you, Jacob. All right, so here's the point where I get to hype next week, because next week, for all of you that are tuned in, and I'll put up post, we do have. Oh, thank you. That's thank you, Greg. Get a little tear in my eye. But yeah, next week we have another guest on our Road to Nationals. Now this one's a little bit off the road, because you're like, who could we ask? We've asked Jacob. We've talked to Jacob. We've talked to Matt. Who else is there that's involved into these Road to Nationals? And there is somebody that I believe both Jacob and Matt give a lot of credit to. A lot of credit. Would you agree with that, Jacob?
I would more than agree with that, Alan.
Okay.
He's been quite the contributor behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So we say.
So the person we're talking to is our first international guest. It will be Nick Butcher from Sydney. You might have seen Nick in the top 8 this weekend as a cardboard cutout. Hastily, because I was like, Matt, what are you doing with that cardboard? He's like, we're making a Nick, and I'm like, dude, yeah, I'm not going there. It's cool, but yeah, Nick Butcher will be live on the stream, calling in from Sydney. So we're going to be able to grill him about all the things he suggested to you and Matt, and you probably didn't listen to, which I think is going to be pretty cool.
We're also going to ask him why he keeps picking that I'm going to make a top 8. I think he's got me confused with someone else.
I think that's the most likely answer. So that means there is a good Ian out there. There is an Ian who's a good fan player. We need to find him. All right. That's all from me this week. Yeah, just want to thanks to Dunedin, and hey Wellington, looking forward to being in you.
Yeah. All right.
I'll leave it at that.
Again, we'd like to thank our guest Jacob for being on and being such a gracious guest, and we look forward to at the end of Rhodes, we are looking to get all the New Zealand winners back to do a sort of a roundtable of what they think national predictions for nationals, but before they jump straight into the mega testing for it. So if you're happy to come back, that'd be great. You get you and Matt. We need a name for the house of Fab.
But we're still trying to come up with a good name ourselves. So if anyone has any suggestions, I'm more than welcome to take them.
All right. Well, we've named a few things over our time, haven't we, Alan?
We have.
All right. Again, as always, folks, wash your damn hands, and we'll catch you next week.
See you guys.
All right.